Everybody, welcome back into ABC 7 at 7. Your results may vary. Please observe all operating instructions. And we have a startling stat for you. In the time it takes for me to say this, there's been one more divorce. Every 13 seconds here in America, someone says, I don't anymore. In fact, before we're done here at the roundtable with our 15 minutes of discussion, about 70 folks are going to go through divorce. Half of all marriages end up in divorce. 60% of second marriages, 76% of third marriages, and in fact, the numbers for this time of year that most families fracture after the holidays, research has been done that husbands and wives start to get the push to get this over with right this time of year. First 2 weeks of the new year are typically when a lot of divorces get filed. And so, at this point, we welcome to the big gray table Joryn Jenkins, whose Open Palm law firm in Tampa is changing the way the world gets divorced. And thank you for being here, first of all.
It's my pleasure.
This is something that a lot of folks have got to consider, and getting through this very traumatic time is key to keeping as many people from going through it as possible.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. I mean, we do divorce work, but I'm probably one of the few law firms in Tampa that offers collaborative life planning, which is something that I've created to try and avoid divorce in the first place.
So what does that mean? Collaborative life planning. Someone comes to you when they're having the discussion with their marriage counselor as well. Is that the timing that you're talking about?
Sure. It can happen then. You know, we in the divorce field, we see what causes divorce, and we know it's the traumatic life events. Often, it's the kids have all left home, or it's the guy who's retired and the wife was a stay-at-home, and all of a sudden she's got this guy that she barely right. Oh my gosh, it's the kids who find out that dad has Alzheimer's, and now all of a sudden they're confronted with, we've got to take care of this guy. How are we going to handle that? Right. How are the finances going to handle? So these traumatic, stressful financial events, often financial. And if you can get ahead of that and start talking to the right people about how to handle that within the family, you can avoid the fracture.
As a divorce attorney, I mean, obviously that's your profession.
Right.
You're still, by doing that, keeping people from potentially using your services.
Well, it's a service that I offer now. We started doing collaborative divorce work because families don't belong in the courtroom. Courtrooms don't do anything. That's why the numbers go up. 50% for first marriages, 67% for second marriages, 74% for third marriages, because they don't learn anything when they go to court. But if we collaborate, we learn to communicate again. I had a guy come out of his marriage and say, I came out of my marriage a better person.
Out of his marriage a better person. Can you come out of this process, though, this collaborative process, and keep a marriage? Is that the goal here? That's
the goal. In the collaborative life planning, that's the goal. In the collaborative divorce, the goal is to restructure the family rather than destroy it. Okay. Courtrooms destroy families. They just destroy them. When my parents were divorced, I never saw my dad again. Ever. They were divorced when I was 7. I never saw him again. That's a horrible thing.
It is a horrible thing, and it's something that is not just being dealt with a 7-year-old, it's being dealt with now with an adult, and you hold on to that stuff. We got to hold on right here. We have to do a quick break and sell some stuff, but when we come back, we'll continue our conversation and talk about holding marriages together and what you can do when they come unraveled. And we thank you for that. Again, welcome back to ABC 7 at 7. Your results will vary. Please follow all operating instructions. And we want to welcome back Joryn Jenkins, whose Open Palm law firm in Tampa is, as she puts it, changing the way the world gets divorced. And with half of all marriages ending in such, that's a big deal. You're not alone, though. This collaborative Open Palm divorce concept was new back in the early 2000s, but now folks are jumping on board.
They are. They are, not just the folks out there getting divorced, but the lawyers are as well.
And that's the important thing, because other than an arbitration, you have to have another lawyer to deal with in a collaborative divorce sort of setting.
You do. You can't do it with just one lawyer. The definition of collaboration in divorce is 2 lawyers who sign an agreement that they're not going to court, that they won't go to court. If the clients give up on the process and they want to go to court, then they have to find new lawyers. It's a little bit of a carrot and a stick thing.
Yeah, it is, but clearly this is the sort of thing that can save folks, A, lot of money, and B, a lot of angst.
So I tell my clients, without knowing what your issues are, if you have kids, it'll cost you $100,000 to go to trial. Oh, by the way, it'll cost your husband or your wife $100,000 also. Round numbers. Collaboration costs a lot less. Mediation is even less than that. Collaboration, we usually use a family counselor in the process, or a financial professional. Both of them are neutrals. The lawyers are aligned with their clients, they're representing them, they're counseling them, but then we have these neutrals to deal with the financial issues and the emotional issues and the communication issues.
Which, frankly, that husband and that wife sitting there in that office at that boardroom table, those are the things that are at their top of their mind.
Yeah, that's right.
And to get through all of that. So this really has been one of those things where you, as an attorney, have to say, I'm not the expert in all this. You're bringing in help, and that has to be very comforting to a lot of the clients as well.
Yeah, it really is. Now, I will say that after 40 years of practicing law, that I have really become very attuned to body language issues and communication issues. And, you know, I had a client who left her divorce. We got her divorced collaboratively, and her comment to me was, I learned to listen to my husband again. It just sounds different when someone else in the room says the same thing he just said. It sounds different. And I realized that I wasn't really hearing him. And so we deal with communication issues right there in the divorce process when it's collaborative.
My guess is that maybe there have been people that have started down this process saying, we want to go like this, and they ended up kind of coming back in like that.
Yep.
I want to talk something about, this is one of those things that don't really have rules when it comes to divorce, but we hear about it a lot, especially here on the Suncoast. Grandparents' rights when families fracture. Is there any way that me as a grandpa can say I have a right to see my grandkids?
So here's what I tell people, and I'm known for saying this. The law should be your last resort. The legislature in family law, the legislature created the law for people who can't agree with each other.
Okay.
The law in your family is whatever you guys agree it is, as long as it's not illegal, right? And so if you guys can agree on what to do with the property, what to do with the home, what to do with the children, the law doesn't care what you do as long as it's not illegal. Same thing with grandparents. And I will tell you that the Supreme Court knocked down 5 laws created by the legislature because they didn't realize they couldn't do it to regulate grandparent rights. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. The only people who have rights to those children are the 2 parents. Those are the only people.
So clearly, if you're a grandpa or a grandma and you're watching this and you're seeing this on the horizon for your kids, you may want to mention this to them because...
Steer them to collaboration, absolutely, or at least mediation or negotiation, some collaborative type of process where we're restructuring the family, not destroying it. We're not destroying relationships, we're helping you mold them a different way. And that way the grandparents can still see their kids and still be on, you know, how many times have parents gotten divorced and the mom had a good relationship with her mother-in-law, and now they're divorced, she can't have that relationship anymore because the mother-in-law has the son to be on his side. And those relationships get fractured also. All kinds of people suffer in divorce, not just the 2 parents and not just the kids.
And not just the kids. And when you go through this, I mean, over 40 years, you said, of doing this kind of work, how much of a difference has just changing up the procedure instead of having lawyer here, we're going to go at it like this, how much of that has changed in making this easier for people or increasing the numbers of people getting divorced? Has that made any difference, or is this just a reaction to the reality of the numbers?
Well, I think honestly that collaboration is still growing. People don't quite understand it. They think it's the same as mediation. So we're having issues, you know, explaining it to people. The idea that we have mental health professionals, family counselors and financial professionals involved in the process is somewhat new to people. But the fact of the matter is that every divorce involves three things. It involves the law to the degree that it has to, because you got to go to a judge to get a final judgment. That's required by law. You can't
That'll
get
cost you
around that.
$450 no matter what.
Yeah, filing fee. Exactly right. Boy, you know your numbers.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So you've got a little bit of the law, but you've got the finances. Come on, the finances are the big issue. And you've got the emotional issues, the kids, everything having to do with those relationships. And so those big issues, as you pointed out, now we've got professionals in the room who can help with that. You know, we go in front of judges every day, and it's always the new judges who get tossed into family law. I had a judge once say, you know, I don't know much about family law. Joryn will tell you that I did commercial litigation, because I knew him, but he's talking to the clients and he's going, I don't know much about family law, but how hard can it be? I have a family. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit of unnecessary hubris on his part.
Oh my.
Because there is a lot to know.
But I'll tell you, my client settled that case like that.
Really?
Oh yeah.
When you've been in court for this long, this is something, again, you've seen this tear families apart,
Yeah.
and have to pay $100,000 for each side. What does the cost come down for this? Are we talking half the price, a quarter of expenses?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I run a pro bono collaborative divorce project that I started in Tampa to get the word out, and also to train people. So they get a training and then they don't get a case. They don't know how to go out and market the case. So we get them in a pro bono case so they can test the water, feel their
works.
That's right. And what happens in the pro bono project is people come out, they give their testimonials, they go and talk to the neighborhood. They spread the word that way. But I also was able to collect data that way. So I considered all the hours that people would put in, I accumulated them, and I looked at the hourly rates and I figured it out. Typical collaborative divorce case will run you between $25,000 and $32,000 for everybody. So I only make $10,000. Instead of making that $100,000, I make 10. But I'd rather do 10 of those cases than one.
And I just want, this is something that's been sitting in the back of my head, and I've wondered whether or not to ask you, but I will. Do you end up coming out of these cases with a little bit of PTSD yourself after having dealt with this much angst and people banging
the trial
on each other?
work?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, see, when I was a young lawyer, all I cared about was making new law. And it took me a long time to realize that my clients were suffering. Now, I didn't start in family law. I started in commercial litigation, so it didn't really much matter. Not a lot of emotional stuff going on there necessarily. But in family law, yeah, you start to see it after a while, and you realize nobody wins when they go to court. Nobody wins. And that's pretty terrifying.
And so that's why in 2002 you came up with this concept.
I didn't come up with it. Someone else did. So someone in Minnesota actually had the idea, and it started spreading. I heard about it, and I got someone else to do a couple of cases with me, but no one else seemed to catch on to it. It wasn't until 2009 that I realized if I wanted people to catch on to it, I'd have to do something.
So if it's to be, it's to be by me.
Yeah.
Is that what really changed? You had to get out there and market a little bit more?
Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing that once folks have found this out, you've done a number of shows like this. You've let people know about this kind of concept. Has it taken off?
It's starting to. Absolutely. It's catching fire. Yep.
Who is the primary client that you're looking for? Is it the husband? Is it the wife? Is it the child? Is it the in-law? Or is it any of these folks who can come to you and say, look, I can see this trouble on the horizon. Can you give us any kind of insight and help?
Yep. It's anybody who I mean, I've had neighbors come to me. I've had neighbors who got subpoenaed.
That can be a bit annoying sometimes.
I had a neighbor who got subpoenaed come to me because he didn't know. He said to me, I don't know who's subpoenaing me. Can you tell me who's, because I don't know who I'm going to testify. I don't know who's going to end up in the house at the end of the day, and I don't want to make an enemy of whoever it is who's subpoenaing me. Wow. I mean, everybody gets involved in these cases. Teachers hate to have to take their day out of the classroom and go to the courtroom. It's crazy. It's a waste of time. And
yet that happens so much, again, in family law, because you've got to have the testimony about how it's affecting the children, rather than stipulating, oh my gosh, this is going to affect the children. How can somebody get in touch with you?
Call Open Palm Law. I'm at Joryn at openpalmlaw.com. Joryn, Joryn, that's the hard part.
You've got to spell that for everybody, don't you?
Yeah, I do. I do.
And there are also a couple of dozen of these collaborative attorneys also here on the Suncoast.
There are. I want to say there are 30 to 40 right here in Sarasota. There are a couple of practice groups, but anybody can go online and Google collaborative divorce Sarasota, and you'll come up with a bunch of names. You'll find the practice groups. You can go to the practice groups, and we have listings, everybody who practices. And it's not just the lawyers. We also have the family counselors and the financial professionals. They're all members. They're all listed. We meet regularly for trainings, and yeah, it's become a movement. It has.
And with a network like that, the more people that get involved, the more people will talk about it, then you get more involved
That's
in.
Right.
And maybe we can do away with some of the angst.
We can change the way the world gets divorced.
That's a good tagline. You should use that. Joryn, thank you for coming in. Thank you for talking about this. I know it's not anything anyone wants to deal with.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for putting it out there.
Yeah, because half of us
You're doing good.
Do have to deal with it.
Yeah.
All right. Joryn Jenkins, thank you very much for being here on ABC 7 at 7. We got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to switch out the seats. Jerry Zivic will be here with a look at when you don't need to give him your Social Security number.